When he was 12, Charles J. Whitman became the youngest Eagle Scout in America. As an adult, living in Austin, the state capital of Texas, he led a scout troop at his local Catholic church.
He was loved by the Boy Scouts, and he took the boys out on a rifle range, and he showed them, and they enjoyed that.
Toby Hamilton was in Whitman's troop, but he didn't enjoy it. The scoutmaster often taunted the boys.
He would take a dollar bill out and he would throw it down on the floor and he'd say, anybody can do what I do can have the dollar. Well, a dollar in 1966 is a lot of money to a kid. But he'd flip upside down and he would go into a handstand position with his feet up on the wall and he would do push-ups upside down. And of course, we'd all try to do it. We'd fall on our faces. And he would just laugh at us and snatch the dollar bill back and say, see, you can't do it, and walk away. I mean, he was just, it was all about showing off. It was about Charles Whitman. Nothing was about us. I don't know of anybody else in Austin that could shoot like he could. He'd taken us all out to a rifle range at one point, and his marksmanship skills were incredible.
There didn't seem to be any reason why he felt so angry, and yet the anger was really deep-seated from his childhood.
His father was a domineering presence in Charlie's life. Charles Whitman Sr. was strict and overbearing. He often beat his wife and his sons.
What's tragic about that relationship is that Charles Whitman Sr. apparently didn't see anything at all unusual about that. He was the kind of a person who could associate violence and love for a family all in the same sentence.
Charlie nursed a hatred for his father. His violence wasn't the only reason. Whitman Sr. constantly pressed and bullied Charlie to succeed. No matter how hard the boy tried, he could never please him, except when it came to his aptitude for guns. His father kept a gleaming collection of over 60 firearms at their home. By the age of 12, Charlie was an expert shot.
He'd been excellent with firearms from the time he was a small boy. His father said he could shoot the eye out of a squirrel at 50 yards.
Beautiful.
When Charlie was 19, his relationship with his father reached breaking point.
He went out with some friends and he got drunk. And his father got enraged to the point where he beat up Charlie and threw him in the family swimming pool. He was so beaten up and drunk at the same time that he almost drowned.
He decided to sever ties with his father for good. With his mother's encouragement, he joined the United States Marines.
When he joined the Marine Corps, he was an outstanding Marine on his first tour. He was well-liked. People said if you had been somebody, you'd want to go up with Charles Whitman. He was courteous. His IQ was 138.
Seeing promise in Whitman, the Marines awarded him a scholarship in 1961 to study mechanical engineering at the University of Texas in Austin. There, he met a woman who would change his life, Kathy Leisner.
She was outgoing, fun, cute. She was the kind of girl that everybody wanted to be friends with when we were in college.
After a 6-month courtship, they married. But their home life was short-lived.
I have directed that the following initial steps be taken immediately.
On October the 15th, 1962, the Cuban Missile Crisis began. The confrontation between the Soviet Union and the US brought Whitman back to active duty. When he managed to return to university, he was no longer a good student, and the Marines withdrew his scholarship. They took Whitman out of the University of Texas and returned him once again to active duty.
When Charlie returned to Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, he was not a good Marine anymore. He got into fights, he engaged in gambling, he got caught in the possession of an illegal weapon.
In December 1964, Whitman was discharged from the Marines. He returned to Austin, determined to redeem himself. He reapplied to the university, was accepted, and started a new course, architectural engineering. Charlie Whitman may have had a violent temper influenced by his father, but he managed to hide it from fellow students and most of his friends. However, his streak of aggression would soon reveal itself in the most brutal manner. Charles Whitman returned to the University of Texas to resume his engineering studies after being discharged from the Marines. In the city of Austin, he settled down with his wife, Kathy, who was also an undergraduate. On the surface, everything seemed normal, but below a calm exterior, an aggressive personality seethed.
He does seem to have been the type of person who did not have much resilience, who was a rigid temperament, probably because his father was as well. And so he would have stored up that anger and the grievances he had so that it really didn't matter if he had friends and had family and whatnot. He still was an angry young man.
July the 31st, 1966, was the hottest day of the year in Austin. Charles Whitman sat at his typewriter in his sweltering home and wrote a letter that attempted to explain his feelings.
I don't quite know what compels me to write this letter. I don't really understand myself these days. I'm supposed to be an average, reasonable and intelligent young man. However, lately, I've been a victim of many unusual and irrational thoughts.
The 25-year-old was about to put those irrational thoughts to a deadly purpose.
July 31st, 1966, we have a man who has decided to kill a lot of people. And that day was focused on preparing and making decisions and getting what he needed to get to accomplish that goal.
That day, he picked up his wife from her part-time summer job and took her to the cinema. He dropped Kathy for her evening shift and went shopping, buying ammunition, weapons, cans of food, and bottles of water.
He planned meticulously, and he made a number of decisions that led to the largest mass murder in the history of America up until that time.
In the early evening, Whitman started typing.
I've been to a psychiatrist. I've been having violent impulses. I've had tremendous headaches.
As he typed, two friends dropped by.
When we walked in, there was a typewriter, and there was something in it, but of course we didn't stop to look at it or read it. And he was acting very normal.
The couple soon left. Despite exams being imminent, Charlie seemed strangely calm and low-key.
Usually before exams, Charlie was very into studying and didn't have time to do anything. And he was remarkably relaxed.
When he was alone again, Whitman continued to type. He outlined exactly what he planned to do.
It was after much thought that I decided to kill my wife, Kathy, tonight. I cannot rationally pinpoint any specific reason for doing this. I intend to kill her as painlessly as possible.
After Kathy came home and fell asleep, Whitman went to the home of his mother, Margaret. She had recently moved to Austin to escape her brutal husband. Whitman attacked her as soon as he entered her flat.
Then he picked up the body, very gently and carefully placed her on her bed, where he put the covers over her body to make it look as if she was asleep.
He left a note near his mother's body addressed, "To whom it may concern."
I have just taken my mother's life. I am very upset over having done it. However, I feel that if there is a heaven, she is definitely there now.
He blamed the murder of his mother on his father's cruelty.
She took enough of his beatings, humiliation, degradation, and tribulations. I loved her with all my heart.
I think the way that Whitman treated his mother by choking and stabbing her was really about anger at her for not saving him as a child. She knew he was killing her before she died.
Returning home, Whitman crept into the bedroom and stabbed his sleeping wife 5 times in the chest with a bayonet. He returned to the typewriter and the letter he had been writing earlier. In blue ink, he scrawled 3 a.m., both dead. In that letter, Whitman said he had killed the two women to spare them from the murder spree he would soon launch.
We have mass murderers who kill their families and then say they wanted to spare them, but that's usually a lie. Usually that's just something they're telling themselves, but in fact, they're really very angry at these people.
The nature of the killings suggests rage. So these were both very violent, very close, very upfront personal deaths with someone that he professed to love a great deal.
Kathy said that when they were first married, that he would hit her. She told me that. He used to really have a temper.
Whitman had been taking amphetamines in the months leading up to the killings, making his frequent mood swings more volatile. In fact, Whitman had been exhibiting warning signs that he was about to crack for quite some time.
Often mass murderers are also abusing substances. The likelihood that they will act out is raised because their inhibitions are lowered and their impulsiveness is raised. So the fact that Whitman was taking dexedrine meant he probably wasn't sleeping well. He probably was irritated. Already being angry, that would have just magnified his sense of the need to pay back somebody or to get revenge.
At one point, Whitman even confessed his revenge fantasies in class.
Larry looked up and said, "Mr. Riley, Charlie's talking about taking a rifle and going up on the tower and shooting a bunch of people." And I just walked over and put my elbows on his table. I said, "Now that's just what an old Marine needs to do, to prove that he can shoot." And he never looked up. He had that little bitty smile on his face, and he just kept drawing.
Whitman saw a campus doctor about his anxieties and severe headaches. Once again, he spoke about the clock tower.
One of the things that Charlie indicated in the session was that he would like to go up to the top of the University of Texas with a deer rifle and kill people.
The doctor asked Whitman to return in a week, but he never did.
I have thought very much about the concept of death. When it overtakes me someday, I must remember to observe it closely.
At sunrise on August the 1st, 1966, Whitman packed enough food to last for 2 weeks. He also assembled earplugs, matches, rope, a transistor radio, binoculars, and gallons of water. There was a machete and 3 large hunting knives. He sawed off the stock and barrel of a brand new 12-gauge shotgun and packed it along with 3 rifles, 3 pistols, and 700 rounds of ammunition. He loaded everything into his car and then put on a repairman's overalls. At about 11 a.m., he drove to the University of Texas campus. As a student, he was waved through security. Meanwhile, City Police Officer Jerry Day and his partner Billy Speed were sharing breakfast before going on duty.
Billy told me that he was going to turn in his resignation that day. I said, "No, Billy, you don't want to do that." He says, "Yeah, I do." He says, "I feel like